His hands didn't reach for her like he was claiming territory. They asked permission with every movement was reverent and slow. And when her blouse slid from her shoulders that humid Seoul night, months of aching silence slid away with it. Welcome to Afro-Korean Soul Stories, where love doesn't beg to be heard. It's felt in how he touches her, holds her, remembers her skin. If you believe the body remembers what her heart tried to forget, hit that subscribe button right now and stay with us. Because tonight, Temi didn't want explanations. She wanted truth pressed against her, his breath on her neck, his weight reminding her she was still wanted. Temi used to count the hours until Kim Haneul came home to their penthouse in Gangnam. Now she counted the ones he missed. 3 months ago, they were laughing in their marble kitchen, his hands sliding beneath her silk robe as she tried to chop vegetables. 2 months ago, they stopped touching in bed, their California king feeling like an ocean between them. And 3 weeks ago, Hanul forgot to ask how her day at the investment firm went. For the 7th time in a row, it hadn't been a fight that changed things. It was ambition. He'd been promoted to chief investment officer at one of Seoul's most prestigious financial institutions, the kind of position that meant breakfast meetings with chaebols, late-night calls with Wall Street, and dinners that went cold while she waited. She supported him. She always had. Her own work as a senior analyst meant she understood the pressure, the stakes, the adrenaline of closing billion-won deals. But somewhere between conference calls and midnight reports, Hanul stopped looking at her like she was his sanctuary. He started moving through their home like he was always somewhere else, his mind already in tomorrow's boardroom while his body stood in there today. The night before her question changed everything. Temi sat at their long walnut dining table alone. She didn't light the candles this time, didn't cue the neo-soul playlist they used to sway to while cooking. She just plated the samgyeopsal she'd grilled with care, arranged the banchan in their beautiful ceramic dishes, and waited. And waited. Hanul came home at 10:08 p.m. He entered the way he always did lately, shoulders tense beneath his Tom Ford suit. No smile softening those sharp features, no kiss brushing her temple. She said nothing. He didn't ask. Instead, he loosened his silk tie with those long fingers she used to feel everywhere, and walked past the table without glancing at the meal she'd made, at the wife who'd made it. She watched him pour water in the kitchen, still silent, still unreachable. The light from the Han River view caught the angles of his face, made him look like a stranger wearing her husband's skin. But that night something snapped. Not with noise, with quiet certainty. Temi followed him into the kitchen, her bare feet silent on the heated floors. Not out of anger, out of ache, out of the desperate need to know if she was grieving something already dead. "Do you even want me anymore?" she asked softly, her voice steady despite the way her heart was breaking. The words landed in the space between them like stones in still water. He paused, the glass in his hand overfilling slightly, water spilling onto the counter. "Temi," he started, his voice rough. She shook her head, her long straight hair swaying across her shoulders. "Don't answer with words. You've been answering with silence for weeks. Your body hasn't reached for mine. Your eyes don't find me anymore." Her brown eyes held his without flinching. "So I'm asking, do you still want me? Not the idea of me. Not the convenience of a wife. Me." If the story is already pulling at something deep inside you, if you can feel the tension building between them like electricity in the air, do me a favor. Smash that like button and drop a comment telling me if you think Hanul deserves another chance. And if you're new here, subscribe to Afro-Korean Soul Stories because what happens next? You won't want to miss it. Trust me, stay with us. Hanul turned to face her fully for the first time that night. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, he looked. Not past her. Not around her. At the woman who had once fallen asleep in his arms with her whole heart open, trusting him with every vulnerable part of herself. At the woman now standing still in their kitchen, wearing the cream silk blouse he used to unbutton slowly, kissing each inch of brown skin as it was revealed. He saw her soft curves, the way the fabric clung to her waist and hips, the gentle swell of her breasts rising and falling with each breath. He saw the hurt she was trying to hide behind strength, and it destroyed him. He stepped closer, slowly. His hand reached out, not to pull or claim, but to ask. His fingers hovered near her waist, trembling slightly. She didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on his, searching for something real. And when his hand finally rested gently on the curve of her hip, Temi felt warmth again. Not just physical heat, but something real, something human, something that said, "I see you." His other hand rose to cup her jaw, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone like he was relearning the geography of her face. "I miss you," he said, his voice breaking. "God, Temi, I miss you so much it feels like I can't breathe. But I don't want to talk you into staying. I don't want to make promises I'll forget in a week. I want you to feel it. I want my hands to remember what my mind forgot." She didn't respond with words. Instead, she let her arms fall open, her fingers brushing the center of his chest. Beneath the expensive fabric, his heart thudded hard and fast. Alive, present, there. Hanul leaned his forehead against hers, his wavy hair falling forward to curtain their faces. No kiss, no rush, just presence, just breathing the same air, just existing in the same moment for the first time in months. When he finally wrapped his arms around her and lifted her off the floor, her soft curves fitting against his muscular frame like they were designed for each other. Temi didn't resist. She didn't cling desperately either. She just let go, let herself be held, let herself hope. He carried her through their quiet penthouse, past the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering Seoul skyline, and into the one space that still remembered them. Their bedroom. The covers weren't made. Her robe lay half on the chair, his dress shirt from days ago still draped across the ottoman. It was imperfect and real like them. Hanul laid her down gently on the silk sheets, his body following hers with careful intention. For a moment they didn't move. His fingers found hers, threading together. Her eyes never left his. No hurry, no desperate apologies, no promises that might be broken by morning. Just the quiet undoing of distance, one breath at a time. Hanul didn't reach for her the way he used to, all urgency and heat. He waited. He sat beside her on the bed, those dark eyes scanning every detail of her face like he was seeing her for the first time, like he was memorizing her all over again. Temi held her breath, half afraid to break the fragile thread connecting them. His hand hovered near her arm, then rested lightly over the bend of her elbow. Nothing forceful, nothing assumed, just a quiet presence asking permission to stay. She looked at him, really looked, and he looked back like he hadn't in weeks. His lips pressed to her temple, lingered there, and she felt the exhale against her skin. She turned her face slightly, meeting his mouth with her own. Their kiss wasn't urgent. It didn't chase heat or passion. It held something gentler, something deeper. Recognition, maybe. The way two people find each other again without saying it out loud. The way home feels when you've been lost too long. Hanul deepened the kiss slowly, his hand resting over her ribs, his thumb brushing back and forth in quiet rhythm. She could feel the restrained strength in his touch, the way his athletic body tensed with the effort of going slow when everything in him wanted to devour her. Temi's fingers lifted to his chest, feeling the warmth of his skin through the thin dress shirt, feeling his heartbeat accelerate under her palm. She leaned into him, letting her eyes close as his kiss moved to her cheek, then back to her lips, steadier this time, deeper. Her blouse loosened under his hands, but he moved carefully, watching her face for every cue, every sign of consent, every indication that she wanted this as much as he did. When she nodded slightly, her breath catching, he unfastened it without rush, easing the silky fabric aside before drawing her into his arms. Their skin met, her soft brown curves against his hard plains, and the contact felt electric, inevitable, right. He lay beside her, close but not crowding, and let his hands settle at her back, tracing the curve of her spine. They stayed there, face to face, noses brushing, breathing in sync. She touched his shoulder, feeling the muscle beneath her fingers. He kissed her again, slower this time, like he had all the time in the world, like she was the only thing that mattered. When he moved against her, It wasn't with intensity or desperation. It was with memory, with care, with the tender recognition of a body he knew as well as his own. Temi's hand found his cheek, held him there as they shared more than closeness. Something spoken in the language of skin and breath and beating hearts. They moved together quietly, unhurried. No rush, no tension, no need to prove or perform. His hand stayed at her back, fingers splayed possessively across her skin. Her legs curled naturally around his hips, drawing him closer, welcoming him. Their eyes opened between every kiss, checking in, staying connected, refusing to hide in the dark. Temi exhaled softly as their rhythm built. Steady, sure, connected. A conversation without words. An apology and acceptance woven together. He stayed close, his forehead pressed to hers, his eyes never leaving hers even as pleasure built between them like a wave. And when they reached that moment, that peak where everything converges, there were no cries, no theatrics, just stillness, breathless, trembling, shared stillness. Just his name whispered like a prayer from her lips, just her name breaking open in his chest. After, Hanul stayed close, holding her gently, his hand resting at her side. He pulled the covers over them without letting go, cocooning them in warmth. Temi tucked her face into the crook of his neck, her fingers resting over his heart, feeling it slow gradually. No one said a word because none were needed. The silence between them had transformed. It was no longer absence. It was peace. Sunlight crept in slowly the next morning, settling in quiet streaks across the foot of the bed. Temi stirred before her eyes opened, aware first of warmth, then weight. A steady arm across her waist. A familiar scent, his cologne mixed with sleep, at the back of her neck. A steady rhythm of breath behind her shoulder. Hanul hadn't moved all night. His body was still pressed gently against hers, chest to her back, palm resting flat against her stomach like he was afraid to let her drift away. Not in sleep, in feeling. Temi didn't shift. She stayed there for a long moment, her eyes still closed, letting the quiet wrap around them. For the first time in weeks, she didn't wake up with tension behind her ribs. Only questions, but the kind that could wait. Behind her, Hanul exhaled deeply, his nose brushing the back of her shoulder, his lips following. "You're awake," he murmured against her skin. Temi opened her eyes slowly. "So are you." He didn't move his hand, just held it there, possessive and gentle. "I didn't sleep much," he admitted. She waited, letting the silence do the asking. "I didn't want to miss this. Holding you, feeling you breathe, knowing you're still here." His voice was rough with emotion. "I didn't want to wake up and find out it was a dream." Temi turned gently in his arms, facing him now. Their eyes met again, daylight softening the sharp lines of his face, making everything feel closer than the night before, making him look younger, more vulnerable. "You didn't miss it," she said quietly. "You stayed. I want to keep staying." His fingers brushed a curl from her forehead, tucked it behind her ear with such tenderness it made her throat tight. "Not just today, every day. I want to come home to you, not just to this apartment. I want to see you, not look through you." She searched his face. Not for lies, she would know if he was lying, but for consistency. For the man she'd married showing up in the man lying beside her. There was no rush in his tone, no desperate apology, just intention, just a decision being made in real time. "Do you want breakfast?" he asked, his thumb tracing her jawline. She blinked. "You're going to cook?" "I'm going to try." That made her smile for the first time in what felt like forever. A real smile that reached her eyes. "Then I'll supervise." He kissed her forehead, lingering there, before sitting up. His movements were unhurried. He reached for his discarded shirt, slipped it back on, then held her gaze once more before leaving the room, like he was making sure she was real, like he was afraid she'd disappear. Temi sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Something felt different. Not fixed, healing isn't that fast, but present, possible. She reached for her phone on the nightstand and found a folded note tucked beside it. his handwriting slightly crooked like always. I want you, all of you, still, always. She didn't cry, but she did hold the paper in both hands for a long moment before placing it gently in her jewelry tray, next to the diamond earrings he'd given her on their wedding day. The kitchen smelled like burned toast and regret. She walked in barefoot, arms still wrapped in the blanket, watching him struggle with the pan like it was a hostile merger negotiation. The eggs were overdone. The counter was chaos. He looked up when he heard her laugh, and the sheepish expression on his handsome face made her fall in love all over again. Don't judge me yet, he said, waving a spatula defensively. I'm not. I'm impressed you tried. He turned the stove off and set the plate down with exaggerated ceremony. Sit. I made you something that might pass for food. Temi took the chair across from him. No candles this time. No pressure. Just a small, uneven breakfast between two people trying again. He passed her the plate with both hands, like an offering. I forgot how to show you things, he said quietly, his eyes on hers. And I got used to thinking showing up wasn't the same as being present. Temi looked at him, fork paused. Waiting. And now I'm learning again. How to be your husband. Not just a man you live with. She took a bite, chewed, swallowed. It's dry. He grinned. But you'll eat every bite. Every single one. She reached across the table and touched his hand. He turned his palm up immediately, threading his fingers through hers. No expectations. No rush. Just Hanul still here, still trying. And for now, that was enough. The next morning, Hanul didn't rush out the door at dawn like he had for months. He sat on the edge of the bed with a towel around his waist, his athletic torso still damp from the shower, typing something on his phone. Temi, still under the covers, blinked at him through sleep-heavy eyes. You're not already gone? She whispered. Hanul turned, a slight smile playing at his lips. Told the board I'll be in late today. She rubbed her eyes. Did something happen? He placed the phone down and reached for her hand under the blanket, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. Yeah, you happened. And I'm not about to forget that again. That single line pulled her more awake than any amount of coffee could. He kissed her knuckles, warm and slow, his lips lingering on her skin. No audience. No performance. Just a husband remembering the woman who'd always been in his corner, even when he went silent. I want to hear about your portfolio reviews, he said. What deals you're analyzing? What made you laugh at the office last week? Temi blinked, surprised. You remember I mentioned that? He nodded, his wavy hair falling across his forehead. I remember a lot. I just stopped showing it. Stopped asking. Stopped making space for you in my day. She took a deep breath and sat up, the sheet falling to her waist. Okay, she said, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Then come back tonight with time to sit. No laptop. No conference calls with New York. His smile grew. Done. She leaned over and pressed her lips to his shoulder, tasting salt and that expensive body wash he used. And bring dessert, she added against his skin. He laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. I'll text you around lunch, he added, reaching for his shirt. Just to check in. Temi tilted her head. You've never done that. I know. He looked at her, shirt halfway on, muscles flexing. I'm not fixing this with one good night. I know that too. But I'm not letting distance sneak up on us again. When he left 20 minutes later, he kissed her before he grabbed his keys. A real kiss, not a distracted peck. And when the door clicked behind him, Temi stared at it longer than she meant to, because for the first time in months it didn't feel like the end of a connection. Felt like the beginning of one. By noon, her phone buzzed. Hanul, how's the quarterly analysis looking today? Still drowning in spreadsheets. She smiled, tapping back quickly. Temi, one junior analyst told me crypto is basically like stocks but cooler. That's how my day is going. Hanul, genius. Promote him. And tell me what you're making tonight so I know what wine won't clash. Temi, probably japchae, something light. Soft music. Clean counters. Hanul, Then I'll handle the wine and something chocolate. You handle the soft music and wearing that black dress again. Temi, you're not subtle. Hanul, no time to be. Not when I'm trying to earn back what I almost lost. He came home at 6:17 p.m., not 10:08. Temi had only just turned the stove off when the front door opened. He walked in with a small bakery box in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. But what caught her more was how he looked at her first. Not past her. Not over her shoulder. Right at her, like walking into the penthouse meant arriving somewhere that mattered. He leaned in and kissed her cheek before saying a word. "Hi!" He whispered against her skin, his breath warm. She smiled, still stirring the sauce. "Hi!" Dinner was quiet, but not empty. He told her about tense meetings with resistant board members. She told him about a junior analyst who thought short selling meant literally selling things that were short. They laughed easily, the sound filling the space that had been silent for too long. After dinner, he helped her clean without being asked. And when she reached for a dish towel, he pulled it gently from her hand. "Let me," he said. "You cook tomorrow then," she replied, hip bumping his. "Deal." Later, in bed, she lay curled against him. Hanul held her with one hand resting over her waist, his thumb moving in slow circles against her skin. "You feel different," she murmured into the darkness. He glanced down at her. "Good different or bad different?" She kissed his chest, right over his heart. "Good. Like I'm not reaching alone anymore." "You're not," he said firmly. "And I won't let it go quiet again. You'll know me. All of me. Even when I'm tired, distracted, buried in merger deadlines. You'll know you matter. If you're feeling this, if their story is making you believe in second chances and the power of choosing love every single day, let me know in the comments. What moment hit you the hardest? Was it when he finally held her? When she tested him? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Afro-Korean Soul Stories for more stories that'll make you feel everything. She smiled into his skin. And when she pulled the covers over them and shifted to kiss him, he didn't rush. He let her take the lead, let her set the pace. And when they made love again that night, it wasn't about missing each other. It was about choosing each other. Their breath stayed low, controlled. Hands soft but purposeful. Movements sure and synchronized. He kissed her like they had time now because they did. His lips trailing from her mouth to her neck to the hollow of her throat. And Temi let go fully this time. Not to forget what had happened, but to feel what was finally beginning again. The next few days moved like a soft rhythm. Steady, not perfect, but warm. Hanul started setting his alarm 20 minutes earlier just to sit beside her during breakfast. Sometimes they didn't talk. Sometimes they did. But the silence between them had changed. It no longer felt like space opening up to swallow them. Felt like peace settling in to stay. He texted her more often now. Not out of guilt. Out of habit. Out of genuine care. "Meeting ran long, but I haven't stopped thinking about you. Don't wait up unless you're making that ginger tea. Then definitely wait up. Remind me what that candle you like is called. The one that smells like vanilla and sandalwood. I want the whole place to smell like you when you come home." One afternoon when Temi came home early from the office, she found a small shopping bag on the entry table. Inside, 2 candles, her favorites from that boutique in Cheongdam-dong, and a handwritten note. "You've always lit up our home. I'm just catching up." It wasn't grand gestures that rebuilt her trust. It was him remembering the little things, the details, the moments she thought he'd stopped noticing. He began sending voice notes on his commute. Not long ones, just 2-minute check-ins. Sometimes silly, sometimes sincere. One morning she sent one back. "Today's been slow. The interns were confused about basic valuation metrics. But I've been thinking about how you looked at me yesterday morning. Like I was the only thing that mattered. I felt safe again. Thank you." He played that message 3 times on the way to the office. He didn't need music. Just her voice. Just the reminder that he was doing something right. That Friday night, Temi surprised him. He was reviewing contracts in the living room, the Seoul skyline glittering behind him through the windows. She appeared quietly with a small tray, sliced fruit, cheese, crackers, and a warm mug of tea, and placed it by his laptop. She didn't say anything at first, just leaned down and kissed the side of his head, her lips lingering in his hair. Hanul closed the laptop immediately. She blinked. "You didn't have to stop. I want to." He reached for her hand and gently tugged her down onto the couch beside him. Her legs folded under her as she leaned into his side, fitting against him perfectly. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "No music tonight?" he asked, his chin resting on top of her head. She shook her head, eyes closed. "Just this." He held her closer, pressing his lips to her temple. "This is my favorite sound anyway," he whispered. "What is?" "Your breathing when you're next to me, knowing you're here, knowing you're mine." Temi smiled, her heart full. "You're becoming a soft man, Kim Haneul." "I think I always was," he murmured against her hair. "I just forgot how to show it with you." She tilted her face up, kissing his jaw softly. "You're showing it now." That night in bed, they didn't rush to undress. They lay together under the covers, legs tangled, fingers tracing along each other's arms in lazy patterns. "I used to think we were fading," Temi whispered into the dark, "that we'd just keep drifting until there was nothing left to hold on to." "I know," he said, his voice rough. "I felt it too. The distance, the silence. I just didn't know how to bridge it." She rolled toward him, hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "But now," he looked at her, really looked, his dark eyes intense even in the dim light. "Now I know how to stay, how to reach for you even when I'm tired, how to choose you even when work is screaming for my attention." He kissed her slowly, and she kissed him back. Warm, open, trusting. Their clothes didn't come off all at once. They touched first, talked a little, laughed when his hand tickled her side. He brushed her hair behind her ear the way he hadn't in what felt like years. She traced her fingers across his ribs lightly, thoughtfully, relearning the landscape of his body. When they made love, it was quiet, intentional, sweet. He moved carefully, like every part of her mattered, because it did. Every curve, every sound, every breath. She pulled him closer when their skin finally met, her body welcoming his with a sigh that spoke of relief and desire intertwined. He held her tighter when she arched into him, his name falling from her lips like a benediction. They moved together in rhythm, in breath, in warmth. Closeness and care woven into every touch. No scripts, no performance, just them finally completely present. When they reached that peak, it wasn't the moment itself that mattered most. It was what came after. When they stayed tangled together, forehead to forehead, hands clasped, eyes still open and locked on each other. And Temi whispered, "Thank you for loving me again." He replied, voice breaking, "I never stopped. I just stopped showing you. And that was the biggest mistake of my life." Sunday came with overcast skies and a chill in the Seoul air. Temi didn't mind. She liked sweaters and quiet weather, the way the city slowed down when rain threatened. But she hadn't expected Hanul to suggest the neighborhood cafe in Itaewon, especially not before noon. "Get dressed," he said, already tugging on his jacket. "Something cozy. I'm taking you out." She paused, eyebrows raised. "No investor brunch today?" "Cancelled it." She raised a brow higher. "Since when do you cancel brunch with potential investors?" "Since I realized I don't want to impress strangers more than I want to be seen with my wife." That shut her up in the best way. At the cafe, Hanul didn't check his phone once. Didn't sit facing the door the way he usually did, always half in business mode, scanning for contacts or opportunities. This time he sat facing her, one hand wrapped around his Americano, the other occasionally brushing the top of hers across the small table, like a reminder that he was still there, still choosing this, still choosing her. When the waitress, a pretty young Korean woman, brought their food, she smiled a little too long at Hanul. It wasn't inappropriate, just noticeable. Lingering. Temi noticed. So did he. Hanul didn't flinch, didn't acknowledge it. Instead, he reached across the table, slid his hand to the back of Temi's neck, and leaned in slowly. You look like a woman who's already had me, he whispered, his voice low and intimate, multiple times, and will again tonight. Temmie's lips parted, heat flooding her cheeks, surprise and desire mixing in her chest. He didn't break eye contact, didn't smile smugly, just stayed close, his thumb stroking the sensitive skin behind her ear. And when the waitress returned with napkins, Hanul gently brushed Temmie's hair off her shoulder, his fingers lingering there possessively. No announcement, no grand display, just presence. Just, she's mine and I'm hers and everyone here can see it. Temmie reached for his fingers and squeezed once, her brown eyes bright. She felt chosen again, seen again, claimed again in the best possible way. That afternoon, he brought her to the bookstore in Gangnam they used to wander on weekends before everything got rushed and complicated. Temmie ran her hands over the spines of books, the smell of paper and ink stirring something soft and nostalgic in her chest. Hanul stood beside her, trailing one step behind, letting her lead. He didn't rush her, didn't look at his watch, didn't check market updates on his phone. When she paused at the poetry shelf, he reached over her shoulder, grabbed the collection she used to quote when they first started dating, and tucked it under his arm. For later, he said simply. That night he read it aloud to her in bed, half a page at a time, his voice steady and warm, his eyes locked on hers between stanzas. They didn't make love that night, but they touched. She laid her head on his chest and listened to his voice rumble through his ribs. His hand ran along her back slowly, fingers tracing her spine. And when he kissed her hair, she felt it in places deeper than her skin, felt it in her bones, in her soul. The next day, Hanul sent a delivery to her office. Not flowers too expected, not jewelry too transactional. A leather-bound notebook, the expensive kind she never bought for herself because it felt too indulgent. Inside, a note in his handwriting. For the thoughts you never say out loud. I want to learn them too. Temmie stared at it during her lunch break, hands still, heart full. Later that night, she didn't ask for anything. She just reached for his hand in bed, brought it to her lips, and held it there a long moment, kissing his knuckles one by one. Hanul didn't ask what she was thinking. He didn't need to, because he felt it, the kind of thank you that didn't come with words or fanfare, but with quiet, full, complete trust. Temmie didn't mean to test him. Not really. But when Thursday came and he said he'd be home by 7, she didn't say a word when the clock ticked to 7:42. She had made dinner, nothing elaborate, just kimchi jjigae and rice. Enough for two. She poured her glass of water, sat at the table and waited. She didn't text, didn't call, just listened to the quiet hum of the city outside their windows. The kind of quiet that used to ache, that used to make her feel invisible. But this time it didn't. Not as much, because she'd seen the change in him. Felt it in how he held her, how he looked at her, how he showed up. At 7:45, the front door burst open and Hanul's voice rushed through the hall, slightly breathless. Temmie, in here, she said calmly. He appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, phone in hand, chest rising and falling. I texted you 3 times. She lifted her shoulders slightly. I saw them. He stepped closer, concern etched in his handsome features. I couldn't get out of the meeting. The Hong Kong office had questions about the merger. I even stepped out to call you. But, she reached for his wrist gently and smiled. A real smile. I know. Hanul blinked, confused. Then why didn't you respond? I just wanted to see something, she said softly. He tilted his head, searching her face. See what? If I'd feel like I used to, that hollow, quiet space where I waited and doubted and felt invisible. She squeezed his hand. I didn't, because I know you now, again. And I believe you when you say you're trying. Hanul exhaled slowly, then dropped his forehead to hers, his eyes closing. I'm not trying, he whispered. I'm doing. Every day, every moment. You're not an afterthought anymore. You're the thought. He kissed her gently, and she let it linger, let it reassure her, let it sink into her bones. When they finally sat to eat, she noticed he kept watching her. Not with fear or guilt, but with care. With awareness. With intention. And that made all the difference. The next morning, Temi woke up with a strange flutter in her stomach. Not pain. Not nausea. Just off. Different. She moved slower through her morning routine, brushing her teeth while staring at her reflection too long. She wore a loose blouse to the office even though Seoul's autumn wasn't that cold yet. By the time she got home, the flutter had turned into a weight, a knowing. Something in her had shifted, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. She pulled out her phone, opened the calendar app, and counted. Then counted again. Her heart slowed in her chest, then sped up. She didn't tell him right away. Not because she was scared, though part of her was, but because she wasn't sure it was real. Couldn't be real. Not yet. Not when they were just finding their way back to each other. That night, they lay close in bed, her head on his shoulder, Hanul's hand resting gently over her arm as they watched something on his tablet she wasn't really following. Her mind was elsewhere, racing, wondering. The next morning, she drove herself to a clinic in Apgujeong. She didn't want to overthink it, just needed to confirm. And when the doctor returned with a gentle smile, Temi's fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. "Congratulations, Mrs. Kim," the doctor said warmly. "You're pregnant." Temi blinked. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't shock, not exactly. It was awe, wonder, a quiet, overwhelming sense of, this is real. She nodded slowly, unable to form words, and left the clinic with both hands on her belly the entire drive home, protective and already loving. That evening when Hanul came home from work, Temi was in the kitchen. Not cooking, just standing there, staring out at the city lights, her mind spinning. He stepped in, loosened his tie with practiced ease, and kissed her cheek automatically. Then paused, sensing something. "You okay?" he asked, concern immediate in his voice. She turned to face him, held his gaze. "I went to the doctor today." His brow furrowed instantly, worry flooding his features. "Why? What happened? Are you sick?" "Nothing bad," she said quickly, seeing the panic in his eyes. "I just knew. Something felt different." She swallowed, reached into the drawer, and pulled out the folded paper the clinic had given her. Handed it to him with trembling fingers. Took him 3 seconds to read it, another 2 to look up, and 1 more to ask, his voice barely a whisper, "Are you?" She nodded once, tears gathering in her eyes. "Yes, we're having a baby. Don't go anywhere. This is about to get even more beautiful." If you're still here with Temi and Hanul, drop a like right now and let me know in the comments. Did you see this coming? Stay with us at Afro-Korean Soul Stories. You'll want to see how this changes everything. He didn't say anything at first. Couldn't. But the way he pulled her into his arms spoke volumes. Urgent, tight, overwhelming. His hands covered her back, then slid down to cradle her lower belly gently, reverently, like he was already protecting the life growing there. Temi closed her eyes and let herself be held, let herself feel the weight of this moment, the beauty of it. "This changes everything," he whispered against her hair, his voice thick with emotion. She leaned into him, breathing him in. "It doesn't have to. Not in a bad way." He pulled back just enough to see her eyes, his own wet with unshed tears. "I don't mean it in a bad way," he said, voice cracking. "I mean my whole world just got reset. Again. You did that. You keep doing that." They stood in the kitchen for what felt like hours, holding each other, rocking gently, relearning this new version of their love. A love that would soon include someone else. Someone created from the nights they'd found their way back to each other. Later that night in bed, Hanul placed his palm over her stomach again, his touch gentle and protective. No words, just a smile pressed against her shoulder. And Temi knew, deeply, completely, she wasn't doing this alone. Not anymore. Not ever again. Weeks passed, and autumn deepened into early winter in Seoul. They stood together at Hangang Park one Sunday afternoon, the river reflecting the gray sky. Temi's stomach had started to show gently beneath her cashmere sweater, just enough that Hanul's hand found it instinctively whenever they were close. I used to wonder how we'd ever feel close again, she said quietly, watching children play in the distance. Hanul nodded, his arm around her shoulders. And now, she looked up at him, her brown eyes bright with emotion. Now I just wonder what our child will learn watching us love each other. What they'll see. What they'll believe is possible. He smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made him look younger. The right things, he said firmly. The quiet things. That love isn't just passion. It's presence. It's choosing each other even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And then he pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers the way he'd done that first night when everything changed, and kissed her, soft and slow, like home, like forever, like a promise he intended to keep every single day for the rest of their lives. If this story moved you, if you felt the quiet love between them rebuild itself moment by moment, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Temi and Hanul's journey stayed with you the most? Drop a comment below and let us know. If you believe love deserves consistency, effort, and showing up even when it's hard, smash that like button right now. And if you haven't already subscribed to Afro-Korean Soul Stories, what are you waiting for? This is where love between cultures is told with depth, passion, and truth. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Because love like this is worth fighting for, is worth choosing every single day. We'll see you in the next one.